When the FBI's own director admits his agency is running out of resources to keep America safe, you know something is deeply broken. In a tense exchange, Congressman Glenn Ivey demanded answers. Why is the FBI losing $500 million in funding? And why are reports on warrantless surveillance still missing? This wasn't just about numbers. It was about trust, power, and whether our law enforcement system is being quietly hollowed out from within.
Mr. Chairman, let me just follow up with where I think Mr. Klein left off. When I was on the Judiciary Committee last year, there was the 702 issue. It was a very close vote, but the compromise essentially was that we were going to continue to allow the FBI to do warrantless searches, and this is on the specific databases that are that there's access to, but in order to try and be preemptive with respect to terrorism or other types of efforts where you wouldn't have time to get the warrant. Very close vote, but the compromise was that reports were going to be filed by the FBI on a regular basis, I think to the Judiciary Committee. My understanding is we haven't gotten one yet, so I would encourage you to do that. And if you're not familiar with what happened during that era, I'd encourage you to take a look. It was one of the really most problematic scenarios the FBI had in the last 4 years. Mr. Patel, I'll tell you, I didn't support your nomination or your confirmation, but I appreciate what you're saying here today, especially the offer to work with us in trying to address a lot of these concerns. I think I appreciate what you said about your the budget issue, because if you're saying you think you need more than what the skinny budget's giving, I strongly agree. I was really concerned to see the $540 million plus cut to the FBI, and the rationale was that it was going to be, DEI school board meetings and gender ideology, and there's not $500 million worth of cuts related to that, regardless of how one might feel about whatever those issues were. And I really do believe that the FBI is the greatest investigative body in the world, and the strongest asset that you have are your team, your human resources there. And I think you said something about eliminating 1,100 positions and having to fire 13 more, that you didn't want to do that, but given potential budgetary impacts, you might have to do that. That would be horrible for the FBI, especially right now. So we certainly will work with you to protect your budget. A couple quick points with respect to your testimony. One concern that I did have was, there were some things that you really didn't touch on in your testimony. And I appreciate Teslas as an issue, and whoever's setting those on fire should be held accountable for that. But we've got serious political violence here in the United States, a lot of homegrown activity that we need to focus on. Your predecessor testified a lot about it, and we understood the importance of that. Some of us had a chance to work on the task force that investigated the attempted assassination of now President Donald Trump, and I know you've got another pending case with respect to Mar-a-Lago. I think that might be one of the things you want to talk about, not just what happened then, but what's being done following up on that, because there continue to be issues. Governor Shapiro's house being set on fire was another horrific example of that. Also domestic terrorism with respect, you mentioned New Orleans in your oral testimony today, but that's the kind of homegrown terrorism issues that I think we need to focus on, and really only the FBI can get at that in the way that we need to have done. Brian Thompson, that assassination, the United Healthcare CEO, was another example of that. The political violence, or violent crime issue that you just mentioned a moment ago, I've got mixed feelings about the decentralization of your staff. I take the point that you want to make, and my only encouragement would be that you take it slow, especially with specialized positions to see. We did a mini version of this here in Washington, D.C., 25 years ago when we went to political neighborhood prosecution and policing. Some of it worked and some of it didn't. Some of the specialty units, like the homicide unit, needed to be re-centralized again because you needed that expertise, concentrated. And the current office, whether it's political integrity investigations, that might be one that you want to keep centralized. Civil rights is another one. So I hope you'll consider being careful about how you move forward with that. And my district is Maryland. We love having you guys nearby, and certainly would love to have you come out even more so. If you're going to do sending the agents out, my request would be that you target jurisdictions where they have serious violent crime. I was a local DA there. We were able to do joint prosecutions. The U.S. attorney at that time was Rod Rosenstein. We did some joint work, RICO cases. We didn't have RICO capability. We took the cases to him. This is MS-13. And so, when you do joint efforts like that, it can really help local prosecutors and local law enforcement, because the FBI has resources that they can bring to bear that we just don't at the local level, and the impact can be really significant. So I thank you for what you've done so far and your offer to work with us, and I look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Rep. Ivey started by revisiting a critical issue, Section 702, a law allowing the FBI to access certain intelligence databases without a warrant during emergencies. The compromise when it passed was clear: regular reports to Congress to ensure accountability. But as Ivey pointed out, those reports never arrived. That's not a clerical error. That's a failure of oversight that puts civil liberties at risk. Then came the budget fight. Ivey pressed Director Patel on the agency's funding shortfall, over $540 million in cuts, justified through vague rhetoric about school boards and cultural debates. He wasn't buying it, because no matter how you slice it, $500 million missing from the FBI's budget means agents laid off, cases delayed, and national security weakened. Patel confirmed it himself. Staff cuts were on the table, with 13 positions already at risk. Ivey called it what it is: unacceptable. Because right now, America faces not just global threats, but a rising wave of political violence at home, from arson at officials' homes to targeted killings and organized extremist attacks. And yet, Patel's testimony barely touched on it. He spent more time talking about burned Teslas than the growing risk of homegrown violence. Ivey's message was crystal clear. If the FBI loses focus, if it gets scattered, the consequences will be devastating. He even warned against decentralizing key investigative units, urging Patel to keep specialized teams, like civil rights and political integrity divisions, centralized and empowered. Because once you break apart the system that protects accountability, it's hard to rebuild it. Through it all, Ivey struck a tone of urgency and reason, supportive where he could be, but relentless where accountability was missing. It was a reminder that real leadership means asking hard questions when the cameras are rolling and when they're not. Glenn Ivey's exchange was more than just a hearing moment. It was a warning. When vital institutions lose funding, transparency, and focus, the nation's safety and justice systems start to erode from the inside. And it doesn't take a conspiracy to do it, just complacency. If you believe oversight should mean something and that accountability should apply to everyone, make sure to subscribe, like, and turn on notifications. Tell me in the comments, do you think the FBI can rebuild public trust while its resources and oversight keep slipping away?